Hey everybody, today I'm talking about the new Godzilla vs. Kong film, Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. That's the name of the newest film of the franchise. This is an installment of the MonsterVerse, which is basically a film universe that has Godzilla and King Kong existing in it. So I thought the previous one was okay, the 2021 one film that was just called Godzilla vs. Kong. So this is a follow up to that movie. But in this new movie, though, you guys, we do follow King Kong in a place called Hollow Earth. It's basically like this alternate dimension you can get to from Earth, and he's basically the defender there. He has to defend any kind of like kaiju or other giant monsters that might, um, you know, invade his land in the wrong way. And while that's happening, Godzilla back on Earth is basically the defender of Earth from the other kaiju as well. So he's basically doing what Kong is doing in his dimension and doing it here on Earth. And so for a while there, that's kind of how the people of Earth and the Monarch organization have kind of separated the two monsters since we last saw them. They're basically doing better than they are doing harm, and the fact that they actually have something like a use for both monsters. With Kong out on Hollow Earth and Godzilla out on Earth, basically defending Earth as well. But over the course of this movie, there's a new threat called the Scar King, who lives in Hollow Earth. He looks a lot like King Kong. He basically has like this giant like bone whip around his like chest area, and he also has this ice monster that could be a huge threat to planet Earth as well. So basically, Monarch, when they make this discovery that the Scar King has this intention of taking over Earth from Hollow Earth, um, it is now up to both Godzilla and Kong to basically go up against the Scar King and this ice monster to make sure that their differences can be settled, obviously, for since the events of the last movie, and also making sure that these two new monsters aren't basically going to take over the Earth so that they can defend the Earth the way that they were originally intended to, and that the two of them can kind of settle their differences and take out this new threat and become good for the Earth overall. But overall, guys, I thought this film was pretty good. It's not a great movie. I personally like this a little bit better than the previous Godzilla vs. Kong film. It does kind of embrace the silly a little bit more. It does have fun with the fact that there are two big giant monster icons in the same movie, and the fact that they know that most of the audience is basically there for the monster action. And you are going to get a lot of that this time around. There's really not a lot of human element this time around. There's a couple things that I'll bring up in my positives that are regarding a few of the human characters I thought were pretty decent. But for the most part, if you're in for this movie, make sure you're in for the monster action. I think that's where the film kind of where its strengths lie, where most of the good stuff that happens in the movie is within the monster action scenes. So for my positives and negatives of this movie, like I said, the monster action is pretty good. They do try to avoid shaky cam. It is a lot of in-camera stuff, a lot of things where you see Godzilla and Kong smashing stuff. You see them go up against different monsters. There's a couple of moments where obviously they have their disagreements, and it is kind of the previous Godzilla versus Kong, where it's the two of them fighting for a little bit. But for the most part, they are fighting different monsters. They are trying to defend the Earth rather than destroy it. They are kind of Earth's giant defenders in a way. I think they're even referred to as the Titans in a way. So great monster action. If you're in for this movie for the action between Godzilla and Kong, you're definitely going to get a lot of it this time around. So I think the film's strengths definitely rely in the action sequences, specifically the ones that are regarding Godzilla and Kong. I also thought some of the visual effects had a great like world building element to it. Like I really felt like I understood Hollow Earth a little bit more. The previous time around, when we were kind of in it for a little bit, it just kind of felt like a place that they kind of ended things off in the last movie. This time around, it does feel like I kind of know what Hollow Earth is a little bit more. I feel like I have an understanding of it a little bit more. And even with the Earth stuff, when we're back with Godzilla and we're kind of seeing what Godzilla's defending the Earth from regarding those kaiju monsters, there is kind of a world building element to those visual effects as well. So I thought the visuals were very well handled this time around. There is something I'll bring up in my negatives regarding the digital look of this movie, but as regards as keeping the visual effects in like a neat world building view, kind of understanding the worlds that this film is taking place in, I thought the film did a really good job with that. I also like the idea of Godzilla defending Earth, Kong defending Hollow Earth, and the two of them teaming up for something. I thought that was kind of a unique way to continue the story. Because if it was just Godzilla and Kong fighting each other again for another movie, I think it would have kind of been a waste of time. It really just would have been the previous movie all over again. So I do like how they did kind of figure out, yeah, maybe they'll fight every once in a while. They'll have their disagreements, but for the most part, we're going to put them into good use. They are going to fight other monsters. They are kind of more the defender of Earth this time around and the defender of Hollow Earth this time around. So I do like the idea of the two of them teaming up. So I can kind of see why in the title it's not even called Godzilla versus Kong. It's just Godzilla x Kong, representing that they're both there, even though they have the occasional fight every once in a while. But I do like the idea of the two of them teaming up for a movie. I thought that was kind of a cool way to continue the story from the last time around. There's also a new character played by Dan Stevens. For those who don't know who that is, he was basically the Beast in the Beauty and the Beast remake back when that came out in 2017, I believe, from Disney. But he's been in a lot of other stuff that I also really enjoyed. But he plays this veterinarian character, and he's a lot of fun. I mean, you just kind of love the guy. I think he's just a really good actor in general, so I'm kind of already a fan of his in general. But I think he did play a fun veterinarian here. He has a little bit of humor every once in a while that's kind of fun. I do like the idea that he's really kind of passionate about these kaiju, and like there's a scene where Kong has a toothache, and he has to go take care of that and stuff like that. So it's just a very fun character. So if you're a fan of Dan Stevens, if you like him as an actor, I think he has a lot of fun here with this role. It was cool seeing him play this veterinarian character, and also Rebecca Hall's character, who plays a significant role in this movie. They seem to be like good lifelong friends as well, so it was cool seeing that aspect of their characters shine. So I do like this veterinarian character that we get to see Dan Stevens play in the movie. And then we'll go on to Rebecca Hall. I thought her character arc was pretty decent. It's nothing life changing or amazing or anything, but she has this adopted daughter that we kind of briefly saw in the last movie. She communicates with Kong with sign language. She communicates with people that she trusts through sign language. And so there's this arc between the two of them of, one day she's just going to leave and leave me behind, not going to be her mother anymore. And there's the whole thing with the daughter where she wants Rebecca Hall in her life still, but she also is trying to kind of figure out where she is, where she belongs. She doesn't really fit into the school system very well when she has to go to school. So there's a nice little character arc between the two of them. Like I said, it's not life changing. Don't just go for the movie just for that. It's not that in depth or anything, but I do like this character arc that the two of them face, and I liked the two of them working off each other as characters overall. For my negatives of Godzilla x Kong, though, the film does kind of end with setting up for a sequel. Won't go into spoilers, obviously, but it does kind of set up where it's just like, okay, clearly they're not completely wrapped up with this. Clearly they have something else in mind if a sequel gets greenlit. And I really didn't like that part of it. I liked how the last time around it did feel like they went their separate ways, but at the same time, if they wanted to end it where they ended it last time around, I thought that would have been a more appropriate place. It was just too bad they couldn't repeat that same magic this time around where it does just kind of feel like they're just setting up for whatever the next adventure is going to be. So I'm personally not a huge fan of that. It's one of those things where, well, if we get it, we get it, and if we don't, we don't. But clearly they want another one to happen, so they set it up for a sequel, and I thought that aspect of the ending was kind of disappointing. There's also just a ton of exposition dumps for this movie. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically the part of the movie where a character has to kind of explain everything, or there's a narrator that kind of explains how everything came to be, and so now that's why you're seeing things play out the way that they are. There's just so much exposition dumps in this movie. There's this long monologue that Rebecca Hall's character has while she's in this cavern looking at these old cave paintings and stuff like that. It's super long. It's clearly they didn't know how to get a lot of information across as far as getting us informed as the audience, where the Scar King came from, the villain of the movie, and how Kong and Godzilla worked their way into it, and how they work into this history within this cave painting and stuff like that. That part was a little bit annoying to me. I also didn't like how there's clearly a lot of scenes where they have to make up some science in order for the science in the movie to work. And this is one of those things where even people with a basic understanding of science like myself can point out that that's clearly not a real scientific thing that was just explained or explored or anything like that. So it's cool when you fake it, but every once in a while you have to have credibility to faking it. You know what I mean? It's just like there's just a lot of scenes where the science just didn't seem believable enough when they were trying to explain some of it. And like I said, it really is too bad that some of this information had to come across as just this large exposition dump. I thought that was kind of lazy. So they go into this film knowing that a lot of the information that you're going to learn about this universe and where Godzilla and Kong, live within it and stuff. Some of that information, how they give it across to you, is pretty lazy for the most part. I also thought a lot of the human characters felt really disposable this time around. There's just a lot of scenes where clearly, like the Godzilla and Kong and the villains of the movie are using buildings as like weapons, and the Scar King uses the whip and kind of throws the building across to the other monster. There's just a lot of scenes where it's like, well, there was probably humans in there, and there's just a lot of scenes where I just feel like the characters are just kind of like thrown to the side, and if they die, they die, and if they live, they live. There's just a lot of scenes where the characters feel very disposable to me. So I thought that aspect of the film should have been a little bit more considerate about that, I thought. And going back to what I was saying about a digital look, there is a lot of scenes in this movie where the film has an extremely digital look. Clearly, it's done in front of a green screen. There's just a lot of scenes where some of the things that happen, some of the things that the characters have to interact with, just don't feel real at all. It just feels like a digital rendering on a computer. And that's really too bad because there is a lot of scenes in this movie where it does kind of feel like that. It has like a very overly digital kind of look. But overall, I'm going to give Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire an 8 out of 10. I think it does succeed where its strengths lie with. It's definitely in a lot of the monster action and a lot of the world building visual effects that it achieves when it does it right. But there's just a lot of negatives along the way. I really feel like some of this exposition dumping that the film does is really quite lazy. It does set up for a sequel in all the ways that you don't want it to. The human characters in particular feel extremely disposable this time around. Like I said, the film has a very digital look to it that I really didn't admire very much. But 8 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed it overall. Like I said, when it knows what it's doing, when it's good at what it's doing, it's fun. There's just some problems along the way that keep it from being an extraordinary experience or anything like that. So 8 out of 10 for me. If you like Godzilla, if you like Kong, I think it's worth giving a try. Just go into it knowing that it's not going to be life-changing. It's not going to be another Godzilla -1 or anything like that. So 8 out of 10 for me. Enjoyed the film, but it has some issues as well.